Let's talk about imagination. One of my favorite quotes about imagination is from Einstein, and that's the one that says, imagination is a preview of life's coming attractions. And that direction, that quote, that statement moves you out of the conclusion that imagination is just something that your mind does, that it's nothing special, that it's just an activity that you engage in that doesn't really do anything, that doesn't really offer you anything, that doesn't really accomplish anything. And for anyone that's been in the conscious creation game, the power of imagination, the power of making images in your mind, generating images in your mind, accessing images in your mind, and the power of visualization are pretty prominent in conversations around creating your reality or manifesting your desires. So that quote, imagination is a preview of life's coming attraction, begins to highlight the role that imagination has in experiencing what you experience. And to take it further, one of the things that quote highlights is within what model of reality that quote applies. So within a linear model of reality, that quote, imagination is a preview of life's coming attractions, makes sense. It says you are where you are, and what you imagine is giving you access to what's coming. So there's an inherent assumption of time flowing in a linear fashion in that quote. And I invite you to look at that. I invite you to look at what the popular statements of your experience mean within the model that you are using. And I prefer to talk about models rather than truths. The truth of reality is different from the models you use to make sense of reality. And I prefer to talk in terms of models. So rather than saying that you exist in a singular universe as a single self and in a linear model, instead of saying that there's just one universe and there's just one you experiencing it, it's much more flexible to say that you are using a model of being in a single universe as a single self. So you want to incorporate the place you have in what you do to make sense of the world, that you are there organizing reality in a particular way, that you are there first, making sense of the world in whatever way you're making sense of it. So coming back to that quote though, so within a linear model, imagination is a preview of coming attractions, makes sense. Now what happens when you move into a model of parallel universes and parallel selves? What does the concept of imagination become? What role does imagination take? And that slight shift into a parallel universe model where you recognize that you are a parallel self in a parallel universe and there are alternate versions of you and the universe. Within that, imagination becomes something different, and that difference is slight, but it changes the whole game of how you interpret information and how you interpret the very images you access or create during that exercise of imagining something. So within a model of parallel universes and parallel worlds, imagination becomes a preview of parallel realities. So rather than becoming a preview of life's coming attractions as events or circumstances that are coming your way, within a parallel world model, imagination becomes immediate access to something that is happening simultaneously. In the same moment you are imagining something, you are accessing the reality of that something. You're actually looking into, as though you're looking through a TV or a tunnel or a portal of some sort. You are actually looking at something that's taking place in this very moment. So play with that. Take a moment to imagine something right now. Go ahead and conjure up an image in your mind, whether it's something you want to experience or whether something you think is, outlandish. Just go ahead and imagine it for a moment. And then look at the difference in the two models of imagination, or what imagination becomes in two models of the world, the self and the universe. So within one model, you're imagining something and you're interpreting it in a way that says it's something that's going to come. So whether it's outlandish or realistic, whatever you've imagined is a preview of life's coming attractions, right? It's something that's going to happen in some future moment. It's something that's moving towards you. And then you take what you've just imagined within the perspective or the model of parallel universes and parallel selves. And this imagine something, again, whether it's realistic or outlandish, is an immediate reality that is unfolding right now. It's different feelings, isn't it? It's a different feeling of access. It's a different feeling of fulfillment that's there. It's a different feeling of connection that emerges. And that's what you want to look at. Whenever you're playing with models, whenever you're playing with quote unquote truths of what reality is, you want to look at what that model gives you access to, what that definition, what that concept, what that construct gives you access to in the moment. What does it create within you? What stirs within you? What thoughts, what feelings, what sensations emerge, unfold within you? How big or narrow or wide does your awareness become? Where do you go? You want to look at the way you yourself begin to organize within that model, and that will tell you either the usefulness of that model that you're employing or the restrictiveness of that model that you're employing. That's what you want to look at. So play with that. Play with the idea that imagination is a preview of parallel realities. If you are interested in moving into an expanded model of self and universe wherein you recognize that parallel realities and parallel selves exist, playing with slightly altered concepts like this will get you immersed or even integrated into that field of play better. It will give you better access, better integration, better inclusion into that field of play. So play with that. And the key word here is play, because it's not, again, it's not about truths. It's not about what's really, really happening, because what's really, really happening seems to change from moment after moment, from decade after decade, from century after century. So it's not to create a fixed sense of this is what is, but rather to create a flexibility of mind so that you can interact and interface with your environment and with the aspects of yourself within an environment easily, fluidly, and more freely, with a sense of freedom and play being the core platforms from which you plug into what you plug into. So play with that. Pay attention to what happens to you and what happens around you when you, for now, play with the idea that imagination is a preview of parallel realities. And if you like playing with the idea of parallel universes and parallel selves, my book, Reality is a Buffet of Frequencies, deals with exactly that, deals with what happens when you move from a singular model of the universe and self to a parallel model of self and world and universe. So that's available on Amazon.com and you can check it out. In the meantime, have fun, be curious, and play.